Welcome to the Kintsugi Heroes podcast, where we share inspirational stories of everyday people going through different challenges and how they overcome them. Please be aware that the story you're about to hear may have moments of deeply felt emotions and personal experiences. If anything you hear has a triggering effect, please reach out to someone who can help keep you safe. If you love this conversation, we'd love you to like and share it with your friends so we can continue to share more inspiration and hope to as many people as possible. Now, listen up for our next hero story. This conversation is with Kyle Spyrides. What a fighter, what an energy, what a guy. He has this amazing story of how he develops this serious heart infection as a young man. And at the age of 20, ended up having to go into hospital and having open heart surgery. You know, he was a seemingly fit, healthy, outgoing, energetic young man, 20-year-old, and it just changed his whole life in more than the physical way. It changed his whole life because it gave him purpose, and it taught him so much about who to trust and family and support, and then the impact that he can have on other people. You know, he talks about the journey of his life, even leading up to that incident, and also how through the support of the people around him, he was able to make choices that saved his life and helped him to heal. Wow, what a story. This young man is incredible. He's passionate and he's got a photography business and another mission to help empower lots of people. He's doing a lot of great things. He's a bundle of energy, really positive guy. I loved it. This is Kyle Spyrides. Hello, here we are. It is another episode of Kintsugi Heroes, and my guest today is Kyle Spyrides. How are you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. It's always lovely to have another guest, and I always like to just honor you before you begin your story. I know it's sometimes not easy to tell your story, and you know you're going into your past, and I just want to honor you for being brave and vulnerable and showing up to share your story that might help others. It's a really courageous thing to do. It's really giving, and I want to thank you. Let's get started, shall we? I'm going to hand the mic over to you, figuratively speaking. And it's, tell us, where does your story begin? Take us back and tell us your story.
Yes. So firstly, like I said, thank you for having me on. And I love what Ian and yourself and what your whole movement is. I felt really aligned to it. And that's where we were connected. So for me, I guess my story, easy to start chronologically from the start, but probably the development of who I am came at the age of 18, and not necessarily how you would see most people's story, when they go, okay, I'm 18 now, I'm a man, or I'm going out into the world, going to make something of myself. It was more of a, 2 months after school, found myself in an induced coma, nearly died, and family were told that I wasn't going to make it through the night. So very unexpected. As a teenager, I had my life planned. I was going to play international rugby. I was going to play rugby for the South African rugby team. I had mapped out where I wanted to go. I had dealt with all the really, I guess, wasted time of traumatic experiences and, like relationships that were damaging to me in family for too many years. And I guess when you're kind of in the depths of darkness, you're looking for that glimmer of light. And for me, it was a goal. It was something that could kind of rip me out. And during my teenage years, when I was experiencing, all of that, that terribleness, I could go into the gym and work out, and that was my little monastery. That was my little sanctum, my special place. And lifting weights and working out and getting, like making incremental moves towards my overarching goal was my self-healing, my counseling, my deep work. And so found myself, 2 months after I left school in this coma. And I basically had 3 centimeter bug eating a hole into my heart. And none of the doctors, none of the cardiologists, none of the surgeons knew where it originated from. So, there you are, far from where your goal is. And I woke up out of the induced coma, and the whole family were waiting for my stepfather to fly over from Ireland. And he came over and he told me the situation. And he said, "You've got this bug, and it's pretty serious. You had a 33% chance of surviving when you came into the hospital, and the fact that you're alive is a miracle. Um, but now we've got to deal with this situation." So he said, "We can go in, have the operation. They're going to cut a chunk of your major organ off. You're going to be on these drugs. Your life's going to be limited in these ways. And you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this." And so that's pretty far from the aspiration of I can do anything, can be anything, I can achieve anything, uh, to all that limitation, all that you know contraction. So there's another option. So there's this thing called this alkaline diet, and my base understanding of nutrition was how to eat steaks and eggs and do weights and build muscles. Um, you know, and that's all I knew about nutrition. And he said, "Well, there's this thing called the alkaline diet. Basically, juice cleanse, getting rid of all the things that the bug needs to sustain itself. The sugars, primarily sugars, your carbs, getting rid of a lot of those things and just doing this juice cleanse." And the theory is that you change the ecosystem of what feeds the parasite, what feeds the sickness, and then the sickness dies out. So rather than cutting it out, you're changing the environment it's in, and then you're driving it out. And I believed in him. I believed in my stepfather was how I got assimilated into Australia from South Africa. My stepfather was, my introduction to his parents, my grandparents, who ended up raising me for most of my life. And so he'd done right by me on so many different occasions. I didn't necessarily trust the process. Either way was risky. Either way was a challenge. Either way, I was not happy about. However, he gave me, and this is what I respect. I think anytime you're making a decision, you want this. You want all of option A, all of option B, all of the information. You don't just want option A and be guided to option A and told that option B doesn't exist. So all of option A, option B, here you go. And then he basically said, "You make the call. Your body, your life, it's your destiny. You make the call." And he went to walk out of the room. And then I called him back. I said, "Ward, wait, wait, wait." I said, he said, "All right, Carly boy," because he used to say Carly boy. "Carly boy, I'll let you think on it," and as he was leaving, I said, "No, no, wait, wait, wait." I said, "Look, I trust you. Do you believe this can happen? Has it worked before in the past? Yes. All right, let's give this a go." And then I found myself in this kind of this Buddhist army discipline regimen sort of mission that was lots of routine, activities to heal the body and give the body the best opportunity to fight this bug. So he already had packed beetroot juice, handed to me. I had a sip, instantly regretted it. Um, did not enjoy the taste. It was not going to be a tasty 3 weeks. And so I, had all the juices, had the vitamins, all the heart, you know, and I'm not telling anyone what to do with their life. I'm not telling disclaimer, not saying disclaimer, just saying, you've got to decide your destiny. So for me, this is my story. This is what happened. We took selenium, CoQ10, ubiquinol, hawthorn berry, lots of heart vital nutrition supplements and foods, and basically just juice and salads. No oil in the salad, no salt, no pepper. I had my 19th birthday in the hospital, and he gave me a little slice of watermelon. So, it was pretty brutal regimen. And then, we're going along, and you do realize, like, wow, I'm seriously going against the grain. Steve Jobs talks about this. He says, everything around you was created by someone no more smarter or not that much more smarter than you. And we kind of just think things are there and they're just there and that's the way it's got to be. And I think we're entering a time on our planet where we're really questioning the way things are and why they are there and if they could be improved. And that's really that quote, really look at that because it's interesting. We just kind of accept what is, and that's the comfort zone. We accept our partner to treat us like this. We accept that that's their threshold and they can't offer anymore. We accept all these different things, but why don't we try and strive for something more, something better? And so that's what I was doing in the hospital, but everyone around me was not happy with it. Probably had 5 core people that were bought into the mission that I was on. So, you know, learned that core group that were driven and believed in and bought into what you wanted to achieve. And then we basically got to the point where we had to work out, all right, how little does the bug have to get to until it's a non-issue, until it's no longer a threat to my health. And we pulled teeth and eventually got, yep, all right, if it gets under 0.5 centimeters from 3 centimeters, it's a non-issue. And so that was our target. We had a target, and any sort of goal you have, any sort of thing you're trying to achieve, you need the target, you need a measuring stick to see how you're doing. Not measuring, hey, I've got this many podcast listeners because look at me, how famous I am, but hey, we're doing something right. Tweaks we made, the changes we made, they're improving. Our listeners are enjoying it. So for me, that was the big thing. Like, okay, we've got a target. There's an endpoint.
Can I jump in here?
You can jump in. Yep, 100%.
Kyle, this is fascinating. Can you just answer a couple of questions for me? I'm really intrigued to understand what were the physical symptoms that you were experiencing before you went into hospital? Like what made you realize something was wrong? And then tell me about how you got to hospital and, how you were feeling at that point.
Yeah, great question. So I was coming home from the gym one night, had an up and go, had a little protein drink at a convenience store and got home. And then I was sitting down and had Independence Day on. So I thought aliens and fighter jets, this is what I want to watch. And all of a sudden it got really, really hot. So I stripped all my clothes off. I was sitting butt naked on the couch. Then a split second later, it got really, really cold. And then I just chucked everything on, but I couldn't really change my temperature. So that was the first sign that something was up. Next night, went to the fridge, to get some ice, and I collapsed, like I fell over on the ground. And I was aware, I was conscious, but I couldn't move. And then I, you know, I thought it felt like hours. Eventually got up and I looked at the clock and it was, it was some time. And then there was vomiting and, like temperature, all that sort of stuff. And I actually went to a doctor very early on, told them what was going on, and they misdiagnosed. Or, well, she said, "You've got gastro. Here's some tablets. Try this." Went home, took the tablets, threw it up. And I said to the people that I was with, "Hey, like, I need to go to the hospital. Like I know this ain't no gastro. There is something bigger at play. I need to go to hospital." Um, and then I went to my uncle's down in Cronulla. So I was in Sydney, and then, like Sydney City, and then I went down to Cronulla, and he saw me walking down the hallway, and he said, "You've got a virus. Like you've got an intense virus. You need to go to the hospital or a doctor. And if the doctor doesn't send you to the hospital, you need to take him to the hospital." And so then I went to a doctor.
Yeah, right. How did your uncle realize that you had a virus?
So he was a chiro and same as my stepfather, chiros, but they were really like it's not the buck didn't stop at chiro. They were really into learning everything about the human body, health, diagnosis, like kinesiology, testing little viral like bottles to see what's going on in your body. So that very knowledge, I had a lot of knowledge in that space, and he could almost look at me. He kind of knew, and so And at this time, my peripheral vision went like a vignette, like everything darkened. And then I went to a doctor, and it was my local doctor in Cronulla when I was growing up, local GP, and he's this Chinese man. And he remember when I was younger, talking about like some of the childhood trauma. He gave me this book titled Hope, and it had a quote on every page and a beautiful landscape. So he was more than a doctor to me. He was, something special. And he basically grabbed my hand and he pointed to the tips of my fingers. And he said, you know, about 12 years ago when I was learning my trade, I spent some time in the hospital. And these red dots signify that you've got an infection on your heart. That you need to go to the hospital. And then I got in the ambulance, went to the hospital. And then I was down the bottom somewhere, and I told the family, like, hey, I need to go to the toilet. I'm trying to, you know, use the lovely little buckets you get. And I couldn't do the dirty. And then the family got the nurse over, and she looked at my paperwork. She said, what the hell are you doing down here? Like you're supposed to be, I don't know what's happened. There's been a mistake. You're supposed to go straight through the ICU. The reason you can't go to the toilet is your organs are shutting down. And then I got rushed to ICU. This guy with this mask on, the surgeon said, hey, mate, we're going to put your pipe down your throat. You're going to go to sleep. And at that point, I was so sick that it's like, yeah, righto, whatever, let's do it. And put me to sleep. And then he told my family, hey, Carl's most likely going to die tonight. If we operate, we might be able to give him a chance, but either way, it's very unlikely he's going to make it. And my family called my stepfather, who was in Ireland at the time, said, what should we do? He said, obviously, you guys are there. You need to make the call. I don't have the data. I'm not there. I would just think that maybe he's a bit too weak. And so they made the call not to operate in that moment. And then I woke up out of the coma a week later. And so when I woke up out of the week, a week later, woke up and I had had a bowl of Wheat Bix, vomited straight up on my nightgown. And so, knew something wasn't, I had that transition of being in the ICU and getting back to my health. But basically what happened in the long run, at the 3-week mark, we got rid of the bug. And according to them, the bug wasn't going away. And the bug was at 0.2 centimeters, so it was no longer an issue. And that was a huge success. I mean, I didn't believe, I believed in water, I believed in the system, along with all the juice and the vitamins and everything. I was doing visualizations. I was learning about the heart, learning about where the mitral valve is, drawing my fingers over it, sending commands, saying heal, heal. I did that in the shower because I was not very comfortable doing that. Coming through school, coming through the sort of indoctrinated, upbringing and rah, like, you're just not learned in those things. They're not very manly things or very, so getting in tune with your body is not on the curriculum at a private boys' school. So, those sorts of things were very foreign to me. I do remember a powerful moment in the hospital where an older guy, and what happened was, because I wasn't going through surgery and everyone was quite upset about that, they put me, instead of moving me into somewhere where I could spend more time, like a more private location, which there were rooms available because I'd walk around. They left me in the day surgery room where people were coming in and then they were going into surgery, coming in, going to surgery, coming in, going to surgery. I don't have facts to tell you, but I believe it was a psychological ploy. So it wasn't a nice environment, and there wasn't much effort to make it any nicer. And every day I was questioned as to why I was doing it. So a lot of the things about success, about, like driving, about wanting to create something in the world are drawn from that experience. Every day you're getting told, what are you doing? Why? Who do you think you are? Why do you think it's going to work? So a lot of those things parallel into business, into going out and saying, hey, I'm a young 28-year-old, I'm going to write a book, or, oh, who do you think you are? You're too young. You haven't had enough of a life experience. So similar sort of, it was almost like a training ground. And yeah, so I had that experience, healed the heart naturally. And whilst I was in the hospital, there was a powerful moment where an older man looked at me and he just looked me up and down. And, I've got lots of respect for elderly people because of my grandparents. And they were they are angels. They're the best people I've ever met in my life, and a lot of the things of traditional principles and values and a strong family and being a strong man and community and a lot of those things that and having faith and believing in God that is like hated and um, labeled and scapegoated in our current world. A lot of those things they had took them through Great Depressions and multiple world wars and all sorts of crises. And so I've got a lot of respect for the traditional way, there's things that we need to develop and grow out of and create more opportunities for more diversity. And 100%, there's a lot that needs to be changed, but there's a lot of, um, strength and, and foundational things that generation had ingrained. And I think in today's age, I don't think we should be too quick to discard the whole thing and just say, you got no idea, you're from a different generation. So I've got a lot of respect for that generation. Having said that, there was an older gentleman who came up to me whilst I was in the hospital and looked at me, looked up me up and down and said, "Oh yeah, I also thought I was invincible when I was a youngster, and then I realized I wasn't." And I just remember like being like kind of shocked. Like, man, I didn't say anything to him, I didn't do anything, but he just kind of felt the need um, to share his crap information. And so for me, I had this inspiration, like this moment where I was like, I am invincible. I'm a spiritual being. I'm an energy force. I'm not just what's physically happening to me right now. I'm much more than that. I don't know where that voice came from. I got no idea who was kind of in my corner then helping me because I was being knocked down every day. I was knocked down because I was there. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I'd have this dream that I was playing rugby for Springboks and I had my girlfriend on the sideline and family and then we're also going to communities and helping like empower and inspire, young kids. I had this dream and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm in a hospital gown, the sweat dripping down my back, and I'm in the middle of the night in hospital, and I'm so far from that dream. So I just was constantly taking a beating, and then this guy dropped his very contracting belief on me, and for some reason I had that voice that came like almost like a rebuttal in my mind, and so that was a powerful moment. Because you're kind of you're at your nth degree in that sort of situation.
How long were you in hospital for all up, Carl?
6 weeks. It was 6 weeks, and at about the 3-week mark, that's when we healed the bug naturally.
And what was the feedback or the response from the medical staff when you'd healed it?
Um, when I left the hospital, so when we healed it, like we cheered and everything, and then the cardiologist surgeon that we had like shouted and then like walked out the room, and like because he felt, and that's fine. Everyone's got their opinions, and yes, we were taking a risk and we were taking a gamble. I'm not going to deny that at all. But he felt that we were reckless, and so even though we succeeded, he was upset about the way that we went about it. And so that's the last time that we saw him when he gave us the figures. We were like, yes, we did it, and he probably wasn't happy seeing us cheer. Um, and, like, so there's a lot of, just to fill in the gaps, my stepfather informed me that there are incentives, and I'm coming out of school very naive, you know, um, every police person's a good person, every fireman, every doctor, every person in certain positions is just good and kind and is there for the right reasons. And he just said to me, Kyle, like, I'm going to share with you some information. Now, I'm not saying this at all about any surgeon or this surgeon, this is the reasons. But there are other incentives to do a great job, which is great because that means they will do a superb job and they're phenomenal at the work that they can do. So he said there is a big tax break incentive in terms of a reward for doing successful surgery. There's also in the community, in the medical field, like a big hurrah, you saved a young child's life. And he was just telling me the other reasons for going into surgery. And Ward was just trying to say, you can go into surgery tomorrow, you can have the operation, you can get it done, but you're going to have this metal attachment on your heart, and you're going to have all these things, and your life's going to be impacted. You can't do this, can't do that. Now, you're going to get pushed into surgery and realize there are multiple reasons for this. And for me, I had no idea of any of that. I had no idea to think in that way or to be skeptical. And so he at least warmed me up to the idea. And then when I was in the hospital, I was shocked at how despised we were or how we were treated. And because we would send back the hospital food. Who the heck does that? We would you know, there were times where the nurses were actually going into my cupboard and saying, "I'm going to throw these vitamins out. You're not listening to prof. You're not following what we're trying to do." And I was just like, I couldn't believe it because I was never in that environment. So I was probably in a state of shock. And then the moment that we left, I was being pushed out in a wheelchair, and I spent 6 weeks in the hospital. So I went from 95 kilos pure muscle to 77 kilos. So I lost a lot of weight, a lot of strength. I mean, the juice diet gave me a six pack. So that was one plus. But I was leaving the hospital, and the register, this lovely Somalian man who basically came, in and popped in every now and then. I made a good friendship with. He said to me, "Look," he grabbed my shoulder. So while I was being pushed down the wheelchair, I turned around. He said, "Kyle, I just want to, share something that Prof told me." I said, "Oh, mate, I'll see you later." It was good. He's like, "Okay, like I just need to share something." Okay, shoot. And he said, "Look, Prof just wants me to let you know that your lungs will be full of blood. You're going to choke to death within 2 months of leaving this hospital. You're going to choke to death in your sleep on your own blood." I was like, "Okay." I just cried. I just like tears just dripped down my eyes. And so it was just, to answer you, I was just in a state of shock, really. Did not know what we were doing in the grander scheme. Did not know what reaction you get by going against the grain.
Sorry for the interruption. This is Ian Westmoreland, the founder of Kintsugi Heroes, and thank you for listening to this story from one of our amazing heroes. Our mission is for these stories to provide hope and inspiration to people experiencing life challenges, and to also educate the broader community on how best to provide support. If you would like to help us to continue to produce more hero stories and cover more adversity themes, we would welcome all donations. These can be made via our website, kintsugiheroes.com.au. The donate function is at the bottom of the homepage. We'd also welcome any feedback. You can email me direct using ian@kintsugiheroes.com.au. Now let's get back to the story.
Did not know the beast that we're taking on in that environment. So, and then we went to another cardiologist that was referred to by a friend, and we tried to share this information. And I had my family in the room, and we were like saying, like, because my family were also in shock. We're like, we don't know what we did, but we got this sort of reception. I went to stay at Holiday Inn, and they treated me like this. That sort of thing. And so the cardiologist said, "Who's the guy?" We dropped the name, and he said, "I don't want to hear anything negative about him. I play golf with him on the weekends, at least twice a month. I don't want to hear anything." And then the family started talking, and it just started getting aggressive. And strangely, I made a executive call, and I said, "Family, get out of the room. Like, please just get out of the room right now." I just sent my family out of the room. And my thing was, we healed the heart naturally. We got rid of the bug, but the bug had eaten part of like the heart, and we needed to repair it. And repairing it meant I didn't have all those complications, and you got to be on this and that. I had a normal life. Now, the repair percentage in hospital was 0%. When I got out of hospital and I went to this cardiologist, instantly it was at 30%. And so I wanted to get the number as high as possible, and then consider open heart surgery to repair everything. The whole health program, everything was just to get myself in a position to be ready to go and have the operation, not be, silly about how I went about it. And so I sent everyone out the room, and I spoke to the prof, and I said, "Look, that was our experience." He said, "I don't care. I don't want to hear it." Okay, that's fine. I said, "Look, I just want to get my heart to a good percentage. You said we've got 30% repair. I want to get it higher, and I want to have a repair. I don't want my life to have all these complications for the rest of my life." And so I told him that we did the juice diet. We healed the heart naturally. So when you ask me what was the reception, I told him, and he said, "I don't believe it. Don't buy it." I went, "Oh God." I was like, "Okay, whatever. I need to find some level where I can get on with you." I think this is a big misconception in our world. I think we're always looking for who's on the same page as me exactly, who believes everything I believe, who is going to agree with everything I agree with. And sometimes, like, to be real, we're not going to get that. You're not going to agree with your own spouse on everything, your business partner. You just need to find little levels where you can connect, and let's take us to the next level. Connect, take us to the next level. So I needed to find a common ground with him. And he took a liking to me. Maybe it was because I laughed at his jokes, or because he also had like a challenging upbringing. And we actually developed a bit of a friendship and a bond. And so I kept going back to him, and he had his little speech thing, and he'd send a letter every time. And he's like, I was going back to get the percentage higher and higher, and behind the scenes I was doing work on my health. And then his thing was, oh, Kyle's just getting his head around the fact that he's got to have the surgery. And so like he had his reality and I had my reality, but as long as the percentages were going higher and higher and the heart was less and less stressed from the bug, then we were on the same mission. And then I went and had the open heart surgery, and then I repaired the heart. So it was a successful operation in the fact that we repaired it. So that was the reception, to answer your question.
How old were you when you had the open heart surgery? So what was the time, I guess, between getting out of hospital the first time and then going back in to do the repair surgery?
Yeah, so I was quite old for my schooling. So I turned 19, 2.5 months out of school. And that's when I was when I was first sick. Then a year later is when I had the operation when I was 20. And so, yeah, I was 20, had the operation. 6 months later, went and did my Euro trip to finally get out and live.
What was the year like between first hospital stint and then your surgery?
No, 100%.
What was life like? Were you just kind of waiting?
Basically, once I got out of hospital, very, very weak and all that sort of stuff, and was just building my strength up. And then by that time, it was at about July. So it was when like semesters were starting again. It was when, like you could go and study and things like that. So for me, basically my family, whilst I was in hospital, my cousin came and showed me all these papers of like, hey, you can go study here, you can study there, you can do this, you can do that. And so I looked at this studying in Albury-Wodonga in a country town, I was studying environmental science. So I thought, okay, yep, I'll do that. So I went and I studied environmental science for 6 months. That was a nice way of just getting away from everything, just putting some distance between me and what I'd been through. And yeah, that's what I did, but besides that, that's pretty much, that was 6 months. And then the first 6 months was just that health attack. So yeah, I guess in a way you kind of find yourself on the back foot a few years after school, because I did 6 months of that, but I didn't go back to the country. I didn't finish the environmental science degree.
What a journey that you were on from the age of 18, right? Talk about a pivot point of your whole life.
Yes, and I can say I would not be on the mission I am now, but if that bug never hit my heart, I wouldn't be with my girlfriend who I'm so aligned with. I wouldn't have had the maturity. I wouldn't have had the maturity to meet all the great people that I've met in the business world, and probably would not have written a book by now. So yeah, the phoenix can rise from the fire.
What was the most important thing on that journey for you? I guess coming out of the coma, like what saved you, so to speak? What pulled you out of everything? If there was something, right? We often talk about, a faith or a person or whatever. What was it for you?
And I love that, because I know behind the podcast and people behind it and the energy and the movement behind it, there's so much faith and so much spiritual strength, behind what you guys are creating. And I'd love to contribute that. And I'd love to, people often ask me like, what did you see? Where did you go? And to be honest, like it was black. It was darkness. I didn't see anything during the time of the induced coma. And what pulled me out of the coma probably, and this is a big point that I'd love to share, is that it takes an army, it takes a tribe, it takes a unit, it takes a group to achieve. And oftentimes the solo life or the solopreneur or the solo mission, you can do it. You can take the 30 years, or you can join forces with other people who are heading in a similar direction and hitchhike with them. And so for me, I just had so much love around me. Like, I was very lucky, but I had so many people coming and visiting me in the coma. And so family really rallied around me. A majority of this family I wasn't related to, originally born in South Africa and assimilated into this Australian family. So this Australian family really took me in. And that's what I love about the culture. That's what I love about, a multicultural society, and a society where you can be who you want to be. And I think that love was probably what woke me up, and I kind of woke up, and then I would, I spent another week in the intensive care unit, and I was aware of who came. I don't remember what they said, but I remember seeing my uncle. I remember seeing this person, and I just remember this almost tangible feel of love all around me, just oozing into me. And whether they were saying, "I love you, Carl. We want you to be better," blah blah. Like, it didn't matter what the words were. The energy they were shooting to me was that it was actual genuine care, consideration, and love, and wishing me to get better. So I think that is what pulled me back.
That's so beautiful. Have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt that same energy before? Or was that the sort of beyond anything you'd ever experienced in that sort of love sense of that feeling of being loved?
That was pretty powerful. I think that one's hard to beat. And like you said, such a pivotal um, transition moment. I think, you know, another moment was probably going and seeing my grandfather when he was passing away, and he passed away in his home, and holding his hand uh, right until the last moments, seeing that, which is such a beautiful moment. Um, like, we kind of don't we don't confront mortality, trying to have our consciousness live on forever. But when you are aware of the spiritual lessons and the spirituality, and so empowering. But anyway, I was there for a week. This man had never had pharmaceuticals, never had surgery, never had anything medical really challenging in his life. And so, right when he was 91, found himself in hospital. Something tweaked. Like, he was like not enjoying it, not having it, not happy with it. Um, so very different how my experience. So the family went, all right, we need to get him a hospital bed. We need to put him in his home. If he wants to pass away, or if he wants to get better, we need to put him in his home. And there was nothing. The doctors couldn't see anything. There was nothing as to why he was sick. There was no. But but he he started having struggle with his air. And in his family, so interesting. When they wanted to clock out, they clocked out. His mother, when she broke her hip, and then she was in the hospital, and then she got better, and she was jumping on the hospital bed with her niece, and she was all full of life. And the family came in and said, "Oh, look, Nan, we'll be putting you in a retirement village, like tomorrow, like when we get you out of here." Like my grandfather, the Clivey's family, like they lifestyle was everything. They didn't want to be in a retirement village. None of them would be dragged into it. And she passed away in her sleep, and there was no cause, there was nothing. And he had an aunt that did the same thing. She just seemed to, like, she was getting a bit sick, and she was like, "Love you guys, love you all. I'll see you later." And she just, like, tapped out of life. And so, incredible ability. And so he was, I think he was ready. Um, and so anyway, we were around him, and I was, sleeping like in the lounge room on some pillows by his hospital bed, and he'd wake up in the middle of the night, and he'd yell, "Guinness, Guinness, Guinness!" And he never was a drinker, but there's something apparently when you're dying or when you're giving birth. I don't know if it's from that era, but the iron in Guinness is what their craving is. So it was really strange, but we had to get Guinness and give him the Guinness. So I don't know what was from from his upbringing or what happened in his life, but we have the sippy cup, and that was my alarm clock. And so there were moments where we were kind of looking after him, and all the toilet care, and like the shower and brushing teeth and all that sort of stuff, and like kind of overwhelmed, and I would like, it would hit me emotionally. I'd cry, and I'd walk down the hallway, and I'd see my auntie walk at me and just kind of do a 360 and go, "Okay, yep, I'm not going to go down there. That's going to be mostly traumatizing." And when I left, the family, all of them, they're not necessarily a super huggy family, super emotional family, but they all squeezed me so tight, and all of their kids just was so thankful and grateful, and just that I showed up for their parents in that way. But their parents showed up for me. They raised me pretty much from when I was 14, when I had nowhere to go, had no home, and they showed up for me. So I think the commitment to family was another time where I felt that love. And it was interesting. This family that I was not related to, they always said, "Hey, your family, your family." I never quite really felt that because I had like a bit of a, you know, a a love for my South African family, and wanting to go back there, and little dream that I made up. But I could really feel it at that time. So that was another time.
It's pretty powerful, Kyle. And, it's almost like you were given a gift, not just the gift of life, but you were given the gift of a family. And you were shown through that experience that you actually are loved.
Yeah.
And you do have a family.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really beautiful moment to experience. And even people that have a biological family, many people don't ever feel that loved or that
Mm.
supported.
Mm.
And yet you got that in
Mm.
in bucket loads, in droves, in this, magnified moment, or through that whole process, really, didn't you?
Yeah. And in terms of the faith question, or something deeper there, when I came to Australia, I was 2.5, and my mother met my stepfather, and he brought us over, and he wanted me out of South Africa because it was right around when Mandela got into power, which was great for the country, but it was very dangerous. It was very there was a lot of uproar and violence in the streets, and it was a very, and he was like, wait a minute, like, this kid shouldn't be growing up in that country. Like, come to Australia and have a better life. And so he brought me over, and he really like loved me as like his son. He really had that connection. And when I was walking up the stairs of his parents' home, Clive and Dinah, his my step grandparents that became like my parents. I was walking up the stairs, and my grandmother will still tell the story to this day. She saw me coming up the stairs, and but what actually happened was that she had this kind of shooting feeling sensation through her body, and this kind of message from God that she was going to be important in my life. And she can, she's into her 90s, and she can relate that story. And at the age of 14, I literally had nowhere to go. And at that pivotal moment of my life, where I was out on the street, like, I could have gone down a very dark path. Like, who knows? Like, my destiny could have been totally different. Like, I knocked on their door in the middle of the night, and they let me in. They opened up their door, their arms, their heart, and their family. Uh, and they were just special people. I think they had over 150 different families stay at their house, whether it's exchange students from the US, exchange like organizations from middle of Australia, Aboriginal, kids coming in to kind of study in the city, whatever it was. Like, they just opened up, and I've never seen anything like them, never seen anything like it. And that family thing, it's such an important point and such an important thing to have strong. If you want to go anywhere in this life, if you want to achieve anything, if you want to make it through. Um, and I think it's something that isn't regarded in today's day as much.
I'm not going to say that you're lucky, Kyle. I'm going to say you're blessed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And however people want to take that, it's up to them. But it's a non-denominational term that I'm using, really to say, in a universal level, you are blessed to have had that family, and to have had this journey. So that's really special.
Yep. And the beautiful thing about being blessed or having the opportunity is that, I generally do believe most people are good. I think they get fuddled along the way, and I got fuddled along the way, and I wasn't good at times, or I wasn't being a good expression or good contributing member of society. And you have something painful happen to you, then you want to go and cause pain, and so I get a lot of that, but I think the beautiful thing about being blessed or having that opportunity is that I now look at it and go, okay, who doesn't have a Dinah and Clive? Who didn't have that opportunity? Like, who can I help? And that was the big driver behind the book, was like, what can I share that helped me through? You know, Basically at the age of 14, not wanting to be on this planet anymore. Like serious things that serious, like, assaults or attacks. What got me through that? And and what things did my grandparents teach me? And what did I learn from them? And so that's really why I wrote the book and why I want to kind of do more work extended from the book, because not everyone gets the opportunity, like you said.
That's it. Yeah, these pivotal moments in life, they shape who we are and who we become. And it's beautiful to see how you've taken the gifts and the lessons from that period of your life, and you're now living a life as a result of that, which is really inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. And so are you guys with what you're doing. I think it's the contribution element, no matter where you get in life, like the need to contribute is something so deep within us. And, it's just such a drive. And I think that's really where people struggle with business, career, happiness, fulfillment. It's that, where am I contributing? Am I extracting enough? Am I learning enough? Am I training myself enough? Am I upgrading myself enough to be able to contribute at higher levels? And that's a big thing to work on.
Indeed. Kyle, we're coming to an end, and I've got a final question for you. If there's anybody listening to this conversation who can relate to anything that you're talking about, whether it's having a medical issue and fighting a system, or even the family support in a dire circumstance, what would you like to say to them now as a final comment to someone?
I'd say find people in your life that will call your bullshit out. And that's people that are going to call the bullshit out in and around you, going to see transparently, what's going on, where the covert people and operators are, and the effect they're having on you, and also going to call your own bullshit out and say, hey, you're creating this. You being a victim, you swirling in your own inner dialogue and mess and not confronting and not writing out what's going on in your life and your situation, you're creating this. And we can just have people in our lives that will call that out. And I'm very grateful to have people in my life that will say, hey, you've got more in you. You're better than this. You can be better. I expect more from you. We're so worried about that expectation piece, but hey, you've shown me that there's potential. I expect to see that potential. I think that is a big part.
That's great advice, great words. There's a lot to take in there. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, and just for being you, for showing up and bringing your gifts to the world.
Thank you so much for having me and creating this. You're creating the space, you're holding the space for these conversations, and that's important on this planet.
Thank you so much. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Kintsugi Heroes. Please like and share the show to your friends so we can get this out to even more people. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please reach out using the contact details below. And join us next week for our next hero's story. Until then, keep being you, and remember that we are all heroes in our own unique way.
Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. When it hits you in the middle of the night and the truth burns so bright. Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. Take pride in those cries. It's only for tonight, and then you rise. Only when you're broken. Only when you're broken. Only